Welcome to Be Me with Shari Ware, the podcast where each day is a step towards a better you and where we focus on progress, not perfection. Join me as we embark on a journey of self-improvement and wellness, focusing on being just a little better than we were yesterday. Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Be Me podcast. My name's Shari Ware, I'm your host, and in this episode we are talking about cortisol. Tame the stress hormone, easy ways to lower cortisol naturally. When I was researching this topic and looking for a quote that aligned with it, I found one from Daniel Gilbert, who wrote the book, the best-selling book, Stumbling on Happiness. And he said, lower your cortisol level. The happiest people have the lowest level of cortisol, a stress hormone that raises blood pressure and weakens the immune system. Cut the stress, more yoga, less road rage, and you'll cut your cortisol production. So that's actually a very practical quote. Definitely brought some real life situations vividly into my mind there, but sometimes they're the quotes that you remember the most. So what do we want to know about cortisol? We're going to cover what is cortisol, what is the impact that chronic stress has on cortisol, and how can you manage your cortisol levels. So first of all, cortisol is a steroid hormone produced in the adrenal glands. And it is called the stress hormone very often because when cortisol is released, you experience stress. Essential roles include regulation of your metabolism, controlling your blood sugar levels, and reducing inflammation in your body. That is some of the essential roles that cortisol plays. So, a lot of times cortisol gets a bad rap, but it is actually something that we need in our lives. It's just, again, too much of anything is not healthy for us. So it's about the levels of cortisol that we're having. We want a healthy level of cortisol, not an unhealthy level of cortisol. So what is the impact that chronic stress has on cortisol? So when we think about stress is the natural response that the body has when your body goes into what we call the fight or flight response. So when you're under stress, when you're facing a challenge or challenges, that response in your body will trigger cortisol or raise your cortisol levels. And that's a good thing. It is actually meant to help us. However, the problem is that our bodies were designed to only be under chronic stress, to have that fight or flight triggered, or that response triggered for short periods of time, 20 minutes. It was to enable you to run away from a tiger or a lion or whatever was hunting you down back in caveman days. In today's busy society, the problem is that we're triggered constantly and for longer than 20 minutes. There are some people who are just under chronic stress all the time, and as a result of that, their cortisol levels are way too high at a very unhealthy level. And some of the problems that this causes is it can lead to anxiety and depression, it can lead to high blood pressure, it can lead to weight gain, particularly around the belly, the tummy, the abdomen. It can weaken your immunity, and it can cause sleep issues, and it can become a vicious cycle. So how do you manage your cortisol levels? naturally. First of all, sleep. Sleep is one of the big ones. Getting enough sleep is vital for regulating your cortisol. When you don't get enough sleep, your cortisol levels actually spike or raise, and it makes it harder to manage stress during the day. Between 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night is really what we want to aim for as part of a healthy lifestyle. If um, if you can't do that, then the bare minimum that I recommend to people is 6 hours. And if you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep per night, it really does has a very bad impact on your hormones. It really does wreak havoc with your hormones. So you do not want to be getting less than 6 hours sleep a night. Once in a blue moon, life happens. Sometimes we can't avoid it, but as a general rule, on a consistent basis, you want to be getting 6 hours or more, and ideally 7 to 8 hours of sleep. As with the other hormones that we've spoken about, movement helps us to manage our cortisol levels by moving our bodies. Moderate physical activity can actually lower our cortisol levels. So if we do have high levels of cortisol, by moving our bodies in a moderate way, then that's going to help. It is important to know that if you are already chronically stressed and you are participating in intense or prolonged movement or exercise, it's actually going to hinder you rather than help you if you're already chronically stressed. Healthy nutrition. There are certain foods that can help balance your cortisol. So whole foods, lean proteins, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, all of these things can help stabilize your blood sugar levels, which helps keep cortisol in check. And also, just like endorphins, dark chocolate is helpful to help manage your cortisol levels. Some other foods that are helpful are bananas and leafy greens. And those things, especially leafy greens, are something that you definitely want to have in your healthy nutrition plan anyway. So that's a win-win. I love win-wins. Another way that you can help to manage your cortisol levels, especially if you are chronically stressed, is deep breathing or different relaxation techniques such as meditation or yoga. So anything that's going to help you take some time out and calm down is going to help reduce your cortisol. And also one that a lot of people might not realise is connection and support. So, spending time with people you love or friends who are supportive is also an easy way to lower cortisol. Social interaction releases oxytocin, which actually can counteract the effects of high cortisol. So that's pretty much all we want to say about cortisol. That's what it is, how it impacts your body, and how you can manage it naturally. And I will direct you, as usual, to the corresponding edition of Be Me Bites, which is Be Me Bites 28 Feel Good Hormone Series Part 5. This is Part 5 of the series. Cortisol, taming the stress hormone before it takes over. I like to direct people to the written edition of the episode because there's generally resources in there. I put extra resources in there for you that could be helpful to you, and also there's things that might make that are in the written edition that might not make it into the podcast because I don't script my podcast. I just talk off the cuff. So go and check that out and see if there's anything that could be helpful in there for you. I like to ethically bribe people. If you become a subscriber of Be Me Bites, you get a free online copy of any one of my books of your choice. And when you subscribe, you'll get an email that tells you how you can claim that. And until the next episode, keep taking one step at a time, and I'll see you then. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Remember to check out the show notes, and if you have any comments, feedback or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If you've received value from this podcast, make sure to subscribe, and I'd love you to rate and review the show. Have a fabulous day.